are listening to the Heavy Metal Hangover, where the beer is always cold and the music is always heavy.
With your hosts wearing jeans and leather, not Cracker Jack clothes, Rex and Duff.
Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Metal Hangover. My name is Duff.
My name is Rex.
And I am schlitzed before we start tonight.
We actually had a bunch of technical difficulties, and
yeah,
it's really funny because when we're recording, I'm the one that records the master. So like I record myself and I record a backup of you, and then I'm giving you a little look behind the curtain here. You send me your good audio file that you record, then I
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain,
of course, and then I mix them together. And so we normally use Skype to send our audio to actually talk.
Right.
Well, that wasn't working tonight. It started off that Duff couldn't hear me, but I could hear him, and then it literally flip-flopped to he could hear me, but I couldn't hear him. And so we ended up using I think we're using Facebook Messenger or something.
Right.
But it's funny because I keep seeing the Facebook Messenger window, and I keep almost closing it because I'm like, what's this crap? And I keep trying to... like, what's this crap?
Stupid Facebook and your stupid... I don't know, whatever.
So I don't know if this episode...
I don't want Facebook. Bring me Tom back, you know? He was everybody's friend.
But I'm saying if this episode cuts off randomly, that might just close the conversation. So we'll see.
The good news is no one was listening anyway.
That's true. So, we're probably going to do a very short episode this week because, we've both had a lot going on. So we're actually recording late.
And we started, not to mention, are we a day late and $1 short, but we started the episode really late because...
we couldn't get it
Nothing
going.
Was working.
Yeah,
so
we couldn't get Skype up, and when you can't get it up, sometimes it takes a little longer to get things done,
I know. It reminds me of when we did an entire episode of the show where we were like heavy metal songs about erectile dysfunction.
Don't know what you got till it's gone.
I mean, lost my better half. Like that was
I'm broken.
Anybody who's listening to the show now, if you are new to the show, all I have to say is you really, honestly and truly, you missed the best stuff. You missed a lot of the worst stuff we did. You also missed some of the best. And, I think back when I'm like, we did half an entire episode of us coming up with ideas for Anvil songs. We did an entire episode of songs for fat people. We did an episode about songs when you're hungry. We did an episode about songs for erectile dysfunction commercials. Those were just the days. Those were the days. But
so I don't know.
I don't.
But I don't know. This might be so. I don't know. So neither one of us have a pick of the week this week. Nope. I've actually been listening to a lot of really weird stuff. Not like weird, like creepy, but like weird, like. I've actually been listening.
All of a sudden, Rex got creepy. What can I say?
Well, yeah. I mean, no, but so I've actually been listening to. I don't care. You can make fun. So we talk about on the show all the time, like how, neither one of us just listen to metal. Neither one of us, So I've been listening to a lot of industrial and goth rock and stuff like that. I'm not going to dye my hair and start going by like I don't even know, like, what's a weird, like, okay, like, I'll steal the name from Goth Talk from Saturday. I'm not going to start going, I'm not going to start going by Azrael of Biss,
That's literally where I was going to go with this. I'm like, well, you could.
I'm not going to, but no, I've been listening to, like, it's funny, too, because there's a band, they started off as horror, like, kind of a horror punk thing, but then they, eventually went goth rock. Christian Death, and it's funny, you hear the name Christian Death, and I think when I first heard the name Christian Death a long time ago, I was like, oh, they've got to sound like Deicide. And it's funny how you hear, but no, they're actually like just goth rock. And it's I picked up one of their albums today, so.
Yeah, but no one can God is dumb like Deicide. I mean,
God is dumb.
I mean, I'm telling you that, and I don't mean to derail this, but dude, I'm a pretty big Deicide fan, and I know you like Deicide too, especially as of late, you've gotten more into Deicide as of late than you had in a while, and dude, it's awesome. They're legitimately an amazing band, and they have a ton of great records. But it's one of those things where, because they only have one thing that they can write their songs about, sometimes it gets funny. When you write a song called Christ Don't Care,
great.
Christ Don't Care. It's so hilarious because, again, look, take Sabaton, for example, right? They have their albums are about military history, and if they did quite literally every song about World War I, you'd be like, I get it. I mean, eventually you're going to run out of ideas. But would Sabaton eventually be like, you know, trenches touched my balls? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's stupid. Anyway, I don't know. I just had to throw that out about Deicide. That I love that band, but Christ don't care. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say. So I've been listening to a lot of that stuff. So, and I've been listening to a lot of Depeche Mode. So, you know, and I actually have been listening to a lot of Paradise Lost. I've actually been listening just to a lot of sad bastard music lately, and I don't know why.
Well, I've been listening to a lot of sad bastard music too. But we also do, and we can talk about this. Actually, it's not a bad conversation in a minute. I'm just going to throw this out. Rex and I both like sad bastard music in completely different ways. Maybe we could talk about that shortly. Well, continue what you're talking about, but maybe we can spin this off into multiple different kinds of sad bastard. But go on.
Well, but like I normally go more towards like the industrial and like the goth music and like, you know, that kind of stuff, like Joy Division and Depeche Mode, as I said, even Paradise Lost. Yes, I know they're metal. At least most of their catalog is.
Half of their albums are Depeche Mode records as it is, but
it's just kind of funny. Like, it's how it actually, Depeche Mode isn't even always really sad bastard music. It's more of the feel than it is the lyrics.
I more meant like Paradise Lost just kind of sounds like Depeche Mode for
a few albums, yeah. But I don't know. Either way, like I'm not trying to turn this into like the '80s pop or '80s goth rock hangover. I just kind of wanted to mention, so I don't have a pick of the week because that's basically all I've been listening to all week. But I did score something today at the record show that I'm very happy about. So, I talk about it all the time. I have a record collection. One of the things that's, normally I don't care. Like, Duff and I always talk about how...
Is it like Christ don't care?
Yeah, I don't care. Christ don't care. But,
okay, cool.
Normally, like, Duff and I talk about how we're fans of the music. So, we're not... I see people at record shows all the time who do this. And if this is your thing...
I've talked about this, too.
And if this is your thing, I don't care. Like, I'm not criticizing you because... there are other things that I collect, like comic books, where I'm actually kind of the same way. But there'll be people who go to the record show. They'll say, "Oh, look at this album I want. Ooh, this is the Pittman pressing, and it just doesn't sound as good as the Atlantic pressing, or although I really like the album, that's the pressing I'm looking for." I totally get that. If you spend a lot of money on an audio system, and if that's like your thing is to find the best copies of every single album. Fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You and I are different. So,
yeah.
Comic books, it would be like I go looking for an X-Men #1 and I find one. Oh, yeah, this is the original 1963 X-Men #1. This is the one I want, even though it's more expensive. Whereas somebody else might walk in and say, "Yeah, I just kind of want to read it. So just give me your cheapest reprint." Well, you know what I mean? So I understand.
I'm that guy.
Well, I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm that guy too with records. Like, normally with records, I am that guy. I'm like, I just want the album. I don't care if it's the best copy of the best pressing of the best. I just want the album. So normally I'm that guy. And like you, normally I'm that guy. I say, oh, this is a repress and the original is $100 and the repress is $20. So I'm going to buy the repress,
I mean, it's kind of like me it's kind of like me when I walk into a brothel. I'm kind of like, I really don't care where she's from. I just want to, I just want to hump and go home. all joking aside, though, that's, to me, buying records is a mean to an end. It's a means to an end. Like, we both like listening to record, and we've talked about this a million times. There's reasons we like records. We like the artwork. We like the physical media. We like holding it. We like owning it. We like all of that stuff. But, and I don't want to speak for you, but for me, quote unquote, collecting vinyl is a means to an end. To me, buying this means I can touch. This sounds so perverted. I'm sorry. But me buying this means I can touch it. I can hold it. I can listen to it. I can put it on my shelf. I can listen to it later. That's what it means to me. It being, you know, I have the, and I mean, I've said this a million times. The first Kiss record, one of my favorite albums ever. I mean, I love that album. Owning the first Kiss record is a means to an end for me. It means I can listen to the first Kiss record on vinyl, and I can have that experience. Having the copy without Kissin' Time on it does not add to that for me. It doesn't. There's no. There's just there's nothing. There's nothing more to it. And I'm a utility. I guess it's very. I let me say this. It's very utilitarian. Like, I don't get anything extra out of the fact that. Well, you know what? I'll give you a simple example. I don't get anything extra out of the fact that I have the red vinyl as opposed to the black one. Anyway, I keep interrupting you. I don't mean to. But I've been drinking. But on the other hand, I'm agreeing with you is my point. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I mean, but the only thing I wanted to say was that there's certain exceptions to that rule, and one of the big exceptions for me is I don't own first pressings, but I own like from the 80s. I own of all of the big four albums, or at least up through like the 80s. So like, I own Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master. I own 80s copies of those albums. Like, I don't own like the new ones. There's nothing wrong with the new ones. I'm not saying, I'm better than anybody. They
probably sound great.
I don't care, but like that to me, right. I was talking with somebody at the record show about this today. To me, it's not so, that music is super important to me, and the vinyl was the medium of the time. So like, I could say Nine Inch Nails is one of my all-time favorite bands, but when the Downward Spiral came out, there was no such thing as vinyl. So owning the CD is basically the media of the time. So, and I have an original copy of the Downward Spiral that I've had since I was like, how old was I? 14 at the time, or 13 at the time?
I had the record too.
So, but my point is,
I'm not even really into Nine Inch Nails, but I had it too. You know what I mean? Like, it's.
But the point is, like, it's the media of the time. It's the media of the time.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So, like,
was it like 94? I'm making that up.
Yeah, it's 94. But like, my point is, like, I'm not necessarily saying that these are my favorite bands, but like, the big four, thrash metal is super. It's one of my favorite types of music, and so I wanted the big four. Yeah. So to me, it's the history. So it's the same reason I collect comic books. Like some of the comic books I do. Like I have the first appearance of a lot of characters that are important to me. Like I have the first appearance of the Punisher, first appearance of Wolverine. To me, it's like when I look at like that 80s vinyl, I think to myself, like, this was around before Metallica was Metallica. Like, this copy of the record was around when Metallica was just a band that some kids who wear denim vests in your math class listen to, or the guys who hang out at parking lots drinking beer waiting to go into the concert listen to. They weren't the force, one of the biggest bands of all time at the time. So to me, owning those copies of those records, it's like owning a little piece of history. So my whole point in talking about this was there was always one record I was missing, and I never had an original copy of Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good by Megadeth. And I'd seen it one time in person. And yes, I could have gone on eBay, I could have gone on Discogs, but those types of albums, I generally, I kind of like, it's just something about finding them in the wild. So
absolutely.
Almost every album I have from these collections I found in the wild. So today I went to the record show, and there's a guy, Steve, who I deal with a lot. He always like looks out for me. Like when he's buying record collections, he'll like look through the metal and like set some stuff aside for me and be like, do you have this? Do you want this? When I see him at the monthly shows. So I walk up to the booth, and sitting back there on the wall is a first press original Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, never played. It's never been played. And he said, you know how I know this has never been played? And I'm like, what? And he goes, because this is my copy and I've never listened to this album.
Wow, it's funny.
He's like, I bought this years ago, and he goes, and I just never listened to it. He's like, I've heard the album. He goes, but I've never listened to this copy of it. And you look at it, and it's in absolute perfect condition. Like, if I would have bought a brand new copy from, whatever, sealed in plastic, it couldn't have been in better condition. So, I eventually made a deal with him. I got a few other things. I got the Down in It single by Nine Inch Nails. I got a really cool comp that has like 45 Grave and a few other and Christian Death on it and a couple other like that type of stuff. It's like a compilation from Southern California. It's the very first time recordings of some of the like Social Distortions on it. It's the first recordings. It's like the Metal Massacre of that genre of music.
Right. Yeah.
Where it's like the first recordings of those bands. So either way, long story short, I finally completed so I have 80s pressings of all the Anthrax albums, all the Metallica albums, all the Slayer albums, and all the Megadeth albums, and I have an original copy of Bonded by Blood and Pleasures of the Flesh by Exodus. So, like, I kind of feel like I finally closed the door on that chapter where and I have a copy of Killing Is My Business. I have the double album remaster they released. Again, I'm not sitting here bragging about record collection. Oh, look how cool. I'm saying, like, to me personally, it's not so much me saying, look at all this cool stuff I own, as much as it feels good to have that little piece of history. Again, because you think, like, the first time somebody ever heard Megadeth, well, at least not in this case of this album, because I know that this album's never been listened to, but, this album was sitting on the shelf alongside, Ride the Lightning, where somebody bought a copy of Ride the Lightning and they're like, who's Metallica? I don't know who Metallica is. Who's Megadeth? I don't know who's Slayer? Slayer who? And, like, to me, it sounds stupid to some. I'm sure that to a lot of people it sounds really stupid, but to me, there's just something cool about, like, listening to that piece of music, and you think to yourself, and like, I listened to my first press Slayer, and I'm like, some dude in 1986 bought this copy of Rain and Blood, and this was the first time he ever had his face melted by Rain and Blood. You know what I mean? Like, this album.
And again, I know I sound like a perv, but it's my character. What can we do? It's on brand. Let's put it that way. But, like, when you see those old, like, cool records from that day, like, it reminds me of Dazed and Confused. When he's like, look at how, imagine how many people out there are effing, just getting it on. Like, when I see records like that, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, imagine how many
records are out there effing.
No, but I'm like, imagine how many. Well, that
I don't
too.
think they do that.
If they do, that's the record I want. And let's be fair. If anything I recorded was pressed on vinyl, they would hump the vinyl next to it. But no, well, what I mean by that is, like,
Even if it was the Village People.
Well, maybe. Nah. But see, my problem is I won't go where Vinny's already been. I mean, so
fair enough. Okay, sorry.
No, like, it's a weird example, and it probably makes no sense to anybody who's sober. But if you're sober, you're not listening to this show. Point I'm getting at is, to go along with what you were saying, like, someone bought this record who had never heard Metallica before. But there's also the, like, dude, someone bought this record to impress a girl. And that happened too. Like, dude, someone bought this album in 1985 and, told some girl, because back in 1985, women liked cool music. And there were women out there who actually liked guys because they liked cool music. And, there were some dudes like, dude, it's 1986 and, I got Master of Puppets. She's like, oh my God. You go, but again, all joking aside, someone like banged to this record. I know I sound like I'm just being silly, but I think that's cool that someone had experiences with this. And it's not because I'm creepy and I care about them. It's more like this actual record caused someone to experience Metallica for the first time. Someone to whatever it is. And So you're kind of, I don't know. I feel like I'm carrying that tradition on. Well, I'm not getting banged because I like Metallica, but
well, I don't think anybody was at Metallica at the time, but
well, in '86, I don't know, man. In '86, people were like, going to see Ozzy, and but they're like, oh man, Metallica was awesome, and then they bang.
The people who were getting banged were listening to like Def Leppard and Motley Crue and Ozzy, yeah, maybe, but. No, I don't know. I don't know. I was
all day if it got me some trim. I'm just saying. Go on.
I don't know. I'm not from that era. I'm not from that era. But no, I mean, truthfully, like, it's like I said, it's a history to me. So I just wanted to share that. Like,
I totally agree. I'm giving stupid examples, but I agree with you.
I'm happy that I got that because now I feel like that part of my collection is complete, and it's kind of like been one of those things where, I want to have it, but I just. I never see it, and it's actually a really hard. It's really you look at the big four. You look at their album covers,
right?
And I don't know if that one is worse. I don't think that one's worse than Fistful of Metal.
No, it's definitely not, because Fistful of Metal is just anatomically wrong.
Yeah, he's got two left hands or so, two right hands or something.
It's bad.
Yeah.
And Charlie was mad about it he's still mad about it.
Yeah, he's still, because he's an artist.
He was an art school kid, folks.
Yeah, I mean, it bothers him because he sees bad art and he's like, I could have drawn this. But
that's why Charlie had, not to say he drew every Anthrax record, because he didn't, but he had a lot to say about them all.
Yeah.
He's like, from that record on, no Anthrax record was put out without going through him first.
Mm-hmm. No, so... And then
I don't
I'd
blame him. It's terrible.
Then I'd probably say Killing Is My Business is next in terms of terrible album covers, because it's literally it's like a Halloween skull that they like put goggles on. Like,
I mean, if you think about I'd say it's worthwhile to talk about. If you look at those original Big Four records, I mean, Kill 'Em All is kind of basic. Like, you're not going to look at Kill 'Em All and be like, oh my God, like, you're not going to buy it's not like Blackout by the Scorpions, where you see that, you're like, all right, that's cool, I'm buying that. You don't see Kill 'Em All and go, yeah, that's cool, I'm buying it. But it's not stupid either. It makes sense. Metallica's logo always looked cool. They had a cool logo. The name's cool, it makes sense. Slayer's first album is another one where it's like, maybe it's kind of juvenile. I don't know if
cheesy. It's cheesy, but it's not bad.
No, it's a little juvenile. It's a little cheesy. It looks like, but again, we're talking. Yeah, they were on Metal Blade, but they were also, a small band at the time. If a local band in the scene had, let's put it this way. If you were in the local scene or the underground scene, if a band puts out their first record on a small record label and it looks like Kill 'Em All, you're not going to think, well, these guys, you're going to be like, oh, that's cool. You see, dude, I mean, come on. Like, even when we were in high school, if there was an independent, let's just pretend we were living around there, and there was an independent band and that was the look of their first record, be like, oh, this is awesome. So, yeah, I mean, it was totally cool. Fistful of Metal, I got to say this. Forget about the anatomically, forget about that problem. It's stupid anyway. And it also doesn't fit them.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the first Slayer record, which I really like, by the way. I really like, I know I've gone on records, I'm not a huge Slayer fan. I really like their first album. I really like Hell Awaits. I really like Haunting the Chapel. When I look at that first Slayer record, I might say it's a little cheesy, but dude, can we agree that it's the right cover for that album? Maybe they could have done that. It could have been executed better, but it fits. There's no taking the... Like, it was conceptually okay. It was just maybe it wasn't executed perfectly. There is nothing about Fistful of Metal that should have happened. It doesn't fit the music. It's just stupid. It's dumb. And Killing Is My Business is just like, this is lazy. It's like, I don't know. It's well, I mean, and in fairness, I'm probably being harsh because I'm not a big fan of the record. I like the song The Mechanics, but I don't know, man. The Mechanics would be a song I'd love to see Megadeth play live, but I don't care to listen to it on the record either. I hate saying that I'm not a fan of 80s Megadeth for the most part. Don't hate all of it. I don't hate any of it. I'm just not really into it. But again, I interrupted you, not meaning to. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just, I just want to, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's those original Big Four records. I mean, well, yeah, and here's a difference, too, about listening to records. There's a reason why I have spent, can we just use $100? Let's just use that because it's an easy number to work with. Let's pretend you bought that record today for $100. And again, I don't care what you paid for. What you paid for doesn't matter. Let's pretend you paid $100 for it. You paid $100 for that record because of the piece of history, like you said. The records that I've paid $100 for were because that's the only way. Like I bought Dogman by King's X on vinyl, and I paid. Again, we'll use $100 for it. At the time, that was the absolutely only way to get Dogman on vinyl. It came out in like '94. It was only pressed on vinyl, I think, one time, and you're just not going to get it. I mean, dude, I'm a huge fan of the Galactic Cowboys. Their first album was only pressed on vinyl one time in Europe. It was off of Geffen Records, who doesn't give two craps about the Galactic Cowboys. You can get all their records starting with their third record, because then they were on Metal Blade, and they fit. It made sense that they were on Metal Blade. They weren't really metal, but it made sense. The Geffen company is going to be like, dude, Galactic Cowboys sold 12 albums, like 12 copies of this album. I love the band, but they're not going to repress it. So for me, I'm like, I'll spend $100 on it because it's the only way I can get it. Whereas I will be the first to admit, if they repressed that album, an example would be Dogman by King's X. I spent the money on it because it was the only one that existed. They are repressing it now, where now that I could get the repress for, I'm again making this up, for $30, there's no way I would have bought the more expensive version. Because for me, it's a means to an end. And I'm not trying to contrast the two of us as much as say it's just kind of interesting when you look at the different ways to approach giving a crap about whether or not you own it.
Yeah, I mean, well, but again, it's just
different ways to look at it.
It's not like that for everything. It's just for those particular albums. Like truthfully, those albums are the only ones I care about. But again, I just wanted to say it was kind of cool. Like I finally completed that. It's my Big Four collection and Exodus. So I'm just kind of happy.
I have all those old Exodus records on cassette. Like old. I've had them for 25 years, copies on cassette. And Exodus is odd. Those old Exodus records are great because the album covers suck on all of them. Exodus album covers are terrible. They're like they're the deep purple of thrash metal.
Yeah, Bonded by Blood is it's not a necessarily bad album cover. It's just poorly executed. And Pleasures of the Flesh is just kind of stupid.
You're like, okay. Bonded by Blood is another Fistful of Metal. It's not as bad as Fistful of Metal. I agree with you that it's not conceptually terrible, but it looks dumb. Pleasures of the Flesh, hey, let's have these guys sit there at a bar.
Yeah, they're just sitting there.
Wait. They need skulls.
Yeah, I know, it's so bad.
Then Fabulous Disaster, it's like, okay, let's do the same thing as last time. Open your mouth.
Fabulous Disaster is 100% the template for all, whatever you want to call it, pizza or party thrash album covers.
Dude. And then Impact is Imminent is the exact same thing, but they're like, oh, crap, we got to put you in a car.
Yeah.
And then you have like, oh, my God. Then there's Force of Habit, which I know Gary Holt hates because they spent, if I'm not mistaken, they spent a ton of money on it. I don't remember the dude's name, but they spent, if I'm not mistaken, and people, you can fact check me, I don't care. The guy who did the album art for that record was famous and expensive, and they wanted him to do it, and they looked at it and went, this is so bad. But they had already spent so much money on getting him to do the album cover that they had to stick with it. But I swear to God, it is in my head that Gary Holt told that story, that they were just, you know what I mean? Like, you look at it and go, damn. Temple of the Damned has a cool album cover. That one I will give them. I think Temple of the Damned. I'm looking through the records.
So I don't want to do album covers because we talked about this. Like I hate doing episodes where we're like, yeah, so this is what's happening in this picture, and we're going to talk about it. Like I don't want to do that because
I just wanted to see if they had any that didn't suck, and I guess they have one that doesn't.
We're also going to I don't know what we're going to do. We also might start doing short videos. I don't know if we will or not. We kind of tested it. We were originally going to do a reaction to music videos. And then the very first one we watched like 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. And the very first one I tried to upload, YouTube told me I wasn't allowed to upload it because we were and you and I talked about it and we're like, you know what, forget it. So we're like, there's a few other ones there's some stuff we might do where because it's all the copyright stuff. Like I don't understand. Look, I understand the whole idea of. If we were just to put we releasing the music video, I know tons of people do reaction videos. I know that they're cliche as hell, but I thought it'd be fun because we make fun of all videos. Like we made fun of the Loco. You made fun of the Loco video, like with the evil ice cream man and his evil Viewmaster.
Well, you even said yourself like ours are more like Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. We're not like sitting there going, oh, this is interesting. He's wearing a fishnet shirt because in the 90s, no, we're like, bah, that guy's wearing a fishnet shirt.
And we're not trying to well, as you can see, this guy uses vocal fry.
And as you can see, the style at the time was to shave all of your head except for a little bit of hair up front. And then you had to
bit up there.
And then you had to dye that green because your mom just doesn't get you. No, so we tried it.
Could you imagine if we tried to break down today we're going to break down the concept of your mom just doesn't get you.
So look, I guess there's ways to do it. I don't really have the patience to figure out, we're only allowed to show X number of this before this. I know that also there's the concept of fair use where if you're providing commentary, you're allowed to use it. And, because you're not distributing it, you're providing comment. Look, I just don't want to deal with the headaches. But there are other videos that I would assume we would not get copyright strikes for. Like we might watch the Camp Chaos Napster Bad videos and react to those because those are super important to us. And to this day, we still use language from them. We also might do stuff like favorite album covers because, again, like we were just talking about, we've always, or at least I've always, and I think you have too, have always wanted to do a favorite album covers episode. But what I don't want to do is, so on this album cover, there's this guy, right? And he's standing there and he's doing this and there's another person in the background. Or I don't want to be Google the album cover so you can understand what the hell I'm talking about. No, I'd rather put it up there on the screen and say, here's the album cover. Here's what I like about it. Here's why I think it's cool. Because it's just stupid to sit there and describe what you're seeing.
I did it with Exodus because, well, let's just be fair. It was kind of like they're standing there, and then they're standing there, and then they're in a car.
No, but I'm saying I know that. But I'm not necessarily talking about this example, but I'm talking overall. We there are a lot of visual things we want to talk about, and those would be much shorter. We're talking 5-10 minutes. We're not going to do our 30 favorite album covers. Maybe you pick one and I pick one, and then we'll do a few of those, and we'll release them, and they'll be 5-10 minutes at most. It's not going to be our normal hogwash, which is 2.5-3 hours long, because no one's going to watch that.
Well, we did 4 or 5 videos of us, doing a Beavis and Butthead of videos.
Well, we did. We also did some serious ones too, but
sure. But they were all 12 to 13 minutes long.
Yeah. So I mean,
and that was only depending on how long the song was. They weren't long, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but and that's the other thing too. It'll give us an opportunity to maybe do shorter, like subtopics, like like I said, visual stuff, like favorite album covers or cool patch. I'm just making stuff up. This is literally off the top of my head. Cool patches or something like that kind of stuff where it's more visual, where we're looking at something and talking about versus, well, I'm going to describe this to you and spend 10 minutes describing it. And after you have no clue what it actually looks like, we're going to discuss it. And you're going to be like, why am I listening to these people talk about something I haven't even seen? So again,
I totally agree.
So like we might do that. We're going to try and give it a try. I'm learning how to do some video stuff so it works a little bit easier on both of our ends. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, so there was a topic I kind of wanted to talk about.
Go for it.
We have a cool list of topics here that keeps growing. Yeah, I was actually watching. This has nothing to do with metal, but I was watching today. You know how YouTube always puts up those compilation clips from all these TV shows like Shark Tank, and I was watching the Canadian version of Shark Tank.
That's funny. I could tell a story about that, but I won't.
It's called Dragon's Lair or something.
It's the Dragon's Den.
Yeah, and it was just funny.
Someone who was on it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, cool. But I was
no, it's not. But anyway.
But I was laughing because it was like, for that reason, I'm out.
Dude,
I was like, yes,
I know.
And I'm not making fun of our Canadian listeners. I'm just saying it was funny seeing like the stereotypical, and for that reason, I'm out.
I know someone personally. I used to know someone personally who upset Robert Herjavec so much that Robert literally ripped up the check in front of him. He was going to invest and went, you know what? You're an ass. And he rips the check up right in front of him. It's hilarious. So, yeah, I've seen Dragon. Trust me, I know all about the Dragon's Den. It's hilarious.
The British one and the Canadian one are called Dragon's Den, and then the American one's called Shark Tank. But I don't know. So it was just really funny. For that reason, I'm out.
I'm out.
Yep. I'm out. But anyway, so, I saw a video recently, and you and I started to kind of talk about this before the show, but I thought it would be an interesting conversation because it kind of goes back to what we were talking about just earlier with how we listen to music or how you appreciate music. And this is probably broader than just heavy metal, but I want to say metal is special because I feel like it's one of the few subgenres that truly cares about its media. Meaning, I feel like, yes, classic rock, maybe rock in general. I feel like, yes, everybody buys physical media. I mean, the fact that they stock this stuff at Target, vinyl of all genres, even now it's primarily pop and all that other stuff. That there's a lot of genres that buy physical media. I feel like heavy metal's, metal in general is one of those genres though that treasures it kind of, where it's important. It's not just, oh, here's my little stack of vinyl that I keep in my living room for when people come over. It's a conversation starter. We're like, here's my wall of vinyl and CDs that contains every band I've ever even had a slight interest in from A to Z. You know what I mean?
Let's say this though. I mean, well, and this relates to something we were talking about earlier off the show, and maybe not that this feeds into what we're about to talk about, but heavy metal fans also, I mean, our music, that sort of stuff is like a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm. A music collection is a badge of honor.
Don't get me wrong, people who listen to Taylor Swift, Swifties or whatever, I am not saying that they're not proud of their Taylor Swift love. But if you compare the majority of people that listen to Taylor Swift versus the majority of people who listen to metal, as an example, one of them is much more part of their identity than the other. One is, I like Taylor Swift, and the other one is, I like metal. And when you like metal, and metal's not the only example, it's just a good example of a type of music where, again, I mean, look at us from high school. People would, if you were to ask people who were not like our friends to describe us, they would be like, they were the long-haired guys who listened to metal. As opposed to, oh, they were the people who listened to Taylor Swift. Like, it becomes part of your identity. And maybe that's lame, and maybe people want to make fun of it, and that's fine. But it becomes part of your identity. And because it's so much of a part of our identity in our lives, owning those records or owning those CDs or owning those patches or owning those T-shirts becomes a bit of a badge of honor, is more what I meant. And maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm completely full of crap. I don't know.
You know, I wish I could find this right now. But there was a... I really wish I could find it. Hold on. Let me see if I can... I don't know.
Vinny says that all the time.
No, there was a something about being a collector or something like that. And it was like, you know, being a collector is in and of itself an art form. Because if you look at how a collector curates their collection, that is an expression of like that's their form of expression. Meaning, like, again, and I feel like this is true with a lot of people who build music collections too, where, you know, you kind of pick out the stuff you like, ignore the stuff you don't like. You have to get all the albums by this band. You have to get the 3 good ones by this band. So it's kind of, your music collection is an expression of your tastes, of kind of, you know, and in some cases, yes, who you are. So I wish I could find this. I wish I could find this this screenshot. It put it so eloquently, and I saved it for that reason, but I can't find it right now. But kind of what I wanted to talk about that relates to that is, you know, as we were saying, you know, and there's one other thing I wanted to say. I remember talking to somebody about metal, like finding metal, whether it be CDs, vinyl, tapes, whatever. And I was always like, yeah, you know, when people get, you know, I remember like this record store I go to, they would post, we just got a collection of 80s metal albums in, everything from thrash to whatever. We will put it out at 1 p.m., first come, first serve, no holds, because they knew that there was going to be people that would literally get in their car right then and drive out to the place. And I asked the guy, I'm like, it's so strange that, like, if you want to listen to like a Led Zeppelin album, you can pretty much find it anywhere. If you want to listen to a, you know, whatever album, you can find it so many different places. I'm like, but metal, I was like, metal is one of those like albums, like one of those genres of music where you just can't find it. Even CDs. Like I know people that buy metal CDs, and when they find a metal collection, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I found this. Yeah, yes, I know CDs are one of those things where, and again, you could still order it on Amazon. I get it, but I'm talking about, there are also some people who prefer to find their stuff in the wild, rather than just saying, okay, I'm going to order 100 CDs on Amazon, or eBay or whatever. But you know, it's one of those things where like they're like, the guy said to me, he goes, well, the problem is one of two things. First of all, especially when you talk about 80s stuff, you know, a lot of it was at parties, or, you know, hey, listen to this, and you throw your copy of, you know, Rain in Blood across the room. Hey, check this out, and throw it at your buddy or whatever. And the other thing is, he goes, well, and also metal guys keep their stuff. Like, he's like, you know, a lot of people who listen to like, oh yeah, I was really into like, you know, top 40 in 1995. They're like, well, I have that pile of CDs sitting in the corner that really doesn't mean much to me outside of like, you know, I bought it, you know, when I had no other choice, but now I can listen to it all on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. So I'm gonna get rid of them all, because who cares? Whereas metalheads, like you said, you took the time and you spent the effort to build this collection. So, and times get tough, and I understand some people are like, I have to get rid of my stuff. I have to make room. I'm moving. I'm starting a family. I need money, whatever. So there are always reasons why you would get rid of it. But for the most part, I want my records back. No, I mean, truthfully, but there are reasons why you would get rid of it. But I think a lot of times that metal in particular, like, we keep our music. Like, we don't want to get rid of our CD collection because those CDs mean something to us.
Plus, I mean, and this is not to contradict what you just said. To add to it, look at how many people have bought copies of Led Zeppelin 4 compared to how many people bought copies of Hell Awaits in the 80s.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Hell Awaits. I mean, come on. It's Slayer. It's a big album. But Hell Awaits, Killing Is My Business, in the 80s wasn't come on, it didn't go platinum. I mean, maybe it did, but I mean, look at Megadeth's biggest records don't sell as many albums as like AC/DC records. Dude, most AC/DC records are not hard to find because everybody had them. Everybody. It's like every record store you go to, if you look at classic rock, they have a copy of The Best of Bread.
Yeah, it's true.
Why? No one wants it. I mean, I'm not making fun of Bread. They're a good band, actually, but it was, dude. You know what it was? You know what it's like? The Best of Bread on vinyl is like cracked rear view at a used CD store in the 90s. You would go into a used CD store in the 90s, and there'd be 27 copies of Cracked Rear View by Hootie and the Blowfish.
Or that one Spin Doctors album.
Or, but I mean, because everybody bought Throwing Copper by Live. Like, everybody had that record. Everybody had that record. You know, Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette, whatever. In that time in the mid-90s, these are albums that everybody had. Everybody in 1985 didn't have Killing Is My Business. Yes, Megadeth is a very big band, but when did Megadeth become really big? In the 90s? Let's be fair, they got a hell of a lot bigger in the 90s than they ever were in the 80s. And by the time they got big in the 90s, we were moving into CDs. So, I mean, I realize you were making the point that metalheads, held on to it, but I'm also making the point that very few heavy metal bands in the 80s were really selling tons of albums. I mean, sure, like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, some of those bands were big, but Metallica was not. Metallica didn't have a video on MTV until And Justice for All. In the first half of the 80s, people didn't know who Metallica was. Master of Puppets came out, and people didn't know who they were. They were opening for Ozzy, which got them a, bigger, in front of bigger crowds. And look, I'm not saying Metallica wasn't big, but come on, you weren't into Metallica when Kill 'Em All came out, if you weren't either in the Bay Area or part of the tape trading scene, you didn't know who they were. So that, that plays into it too. It makes it. It also, what I'm getting at is it's not even so much that because there weren't as many sold, but it's because the people that bought them were probably not people that bought a CD that they heard one song on the radio and then they were like, this is okay, and they got rid of it. Like if you bought a Slayer record in the early 80s, chances are you were not just your casual, I heard this song on the radio, because you probably didn't hear it on the radio.
True enough.
I mean, seriously, like you didn't hear whatever. You didn't hear the Mechanics on your local FM station. They weren't playing Tom Petty and then the Mechanic or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it all of that goes into it to make it just a little, I don't know, maybe it makes it more special. I don't know how to, and I'm sorry. Again, I wasn't trying to contradict what you were saying, more so just add to it.
No, I get it. No, so, but, the whole point, in getting to the long way of saying this was, I feel like, a lot of times, I just saw a video, and I'm trying to remember where. Okay, yeah, no, I saw a video where they did one of those like man on the street style interviews, where they walk up to random people, and this one was, they walked up to a person and they're wearing a shirt, and the person would ask like, oh, why are you're wearing a Slayer shirt. Can you name 3 Slayer songs? And yes, by the way, I'm not supporting doing this because I don't have the energy to care about like what somebody else is wearing. I just don't care. I have way more stressful things to worry about in my life than somebody who's wearing a freaking what shirt somebody that I don't even know or whatever is wearing. So that's not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation was I remember it made me think about it, and I'm thinking to myself, like, some of the bands that I like, some of the bands that, you know, I love, even some of the bands that I really like listening to and I would consider myself a big fan of, I'm like, could I name 3 songs, especially under pressure? Because that's also the key thing there too. A lot of us, you could say name 3 songs, and a lot of us could go boom, 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 boom. You know, oh yeah, I could rattle off 100. But then somebody shoves a camera and a microphone in your face, and you're like, and you just completely draw a blank. Now, yes, there's that factor, but the other thing I was trying to think about was, you know, are there bands that, you know, especially since in this place, this is why I brought up the whole physical media thing. Are there bands, especially since I've been, you know, listening to physical media, that I put on the album, I know the album, but I mean, because bottom line is, like, when you and I were in high school and stuff, I remember we would bring CDs to school, and in between classes, we'd sit there and we'd read lyrics, and we'd look at liner notes, and we'd look at the track listing, and, oh, that's a cool song, oh, that's a cool song. You know, it was kind of one of those things where you kind of memorize it, whereas, you know, now I can honestly say, while I
have 10 CDs, it's a little different.
Right, you have 10 CDs, and, you know, now I can honestly say, do I look at the album sleeve and read it? And yes, of course I do, especially if there's bonus stuff. But truthfully, when I pick up the album sleeve and look, you know, really look it over, is when there's, like, I'll give you an example. The 9 Inch Nails vinyl all come with like 30-page booklets on making the album. Like, that's when I'm going to take the album and like sit down and like really read it. So I'm not just sitting there staring at the track list being like, song 1 is this, you know, song 1 is Mr. Self-Destruct, song 2 is Piggy, song 3 is you know, Heresy, song 4 is March of the Pigs. Like, you know, I'm not sitting there doing that. And I mean, not that I ever like sat there and like quizzed myself, like, oh damn it, I forgot about track 2. But I'm saying, like, you know,
listen to 1,000 times on your CD player looking at it because you had 10 CDs.
Right. So like now I don't
story.
Now I don't necessarily do that much anymore. You know, like, yes, I may read the track listing and I do read the track listing and stuff, but I don't really commit it to memory like I used to. So I was thinking to myself, I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, I about bands that I kind of like but don't love. And I'll give you, and some people want to kill me for saying this, but Death is an example. I could probably, if somebody, you know, shoved a microphone and a camera in my face, I could probably name 3 songs. Yeah, actually, I could guarantee you I could name 3 songs.
Yeah, I could too, but.
Yeah, but I was thinking about it, I'm like, now if you were to tell me name 3 songs off of an album like Human, you know, I could probably be like, I could maybe limp through, and if I really, really put my mind to it and I really, really concentrated.
What does that have? What Suicide Machine on that one? See, I get screwed. Like, I'm thinking, like, is a Flattening of Emotions on that record?
Yes.
Okay, is Suicide Machine on that record?
I don't remember. See, and that's my point. And that's
I like Death, and I'm just, dude. This is not me. This is not me trying to be cool. This is me saying. In fact, I'm gonna look. Hold on. And I'm using this as an example of because I'm actually pretty good at this. And okay, Flattening of Emotions and Suicide Machine are both on Human. Mm-hmm. Congratulations to me. I've had that album since it was on. I have it on cassette. I used to listen to it on cassette in high school. Congratulations to me. I can still only name 2 songs on it.
And here's the thing.
Like, I was happy I could name 2, and I was right, but it was only 2.
And here's the thing. Like, I don't care. Like, you know, I'm not going to sit here and like say, oh, well, you're not a Death fan. But if you were to ask me, name all the Death albums, I could actually do that.
Well, I could. I mean, but because again, first of all, I used to listen to that album on cassette. I didn't have Human on CD back in high school. I had it on cassette. I would drive around and I'd be like, I'd listen to Sean Reinert playing. I mean, I listened to that record because of the Jazzy Cats. You know what I mean? Like the drums and the bass, dude. I wasn't I don't know lyrics. It's well, can I go one step further too? It's not just can I name 3 songs, but dude, do I really know the lyrics on those albums?
No, I don't. I mean, I know very lyrics. There's very slow. Oh, by the way, I wanted to interject this real quick because I actually found, and I had this saved on my phone in literally 9 years ago. And it's almost to the date. Like, I'm a month shy of having this on my phone for 9 years, and this is how much I love that this. And some people are going to say this is stupid. I don't care. I found the phrase: "The collector is an artist in his own way. By the way he puts things together, you can read a person's soul from their collection." And I've always said that I 100% agree with that statement, because there are the things I collect are really a reflection of who I am. And, I know you don't collect much, but you collect music, and music is a massive part of who you are.
Absolutely.
You collect, whether you admit it or not, you collect movies. And by the way, collect doesn't mean buy and put on a shelf and display.
No, I know. I know.
You also collect fantasy novels, and that's a huge part of who you are.
I do, yeah. I mean, do I have some gigantic library of the first the first edition signed Tad Williams, or I don't know, Terry Pratchett record? I don't read Terry Pratchett, so that's easy. No, but I do like having a library of fantasy novels. It's not gigantic, but I do like being able to be like, no, I have on the shelf, I have the entire Wheel of Time, I have blah, blah, blah. So I agree with you.
And collect doesn't mean you hold on to it forever. There are a lot of times, like, I look at some of my collections and I'm like, I really should get rid of that. I don't even really care about that. I cared about it 10 years ago. Do I care about it now? Probably. You grow out of
how many fantasy books I've bought more than one time.
Yeah, you grow out of things. Like, you're like, so again, I don't want to
go back to it years later and like, I really wish I had a copy of that. I want to read it.
Yeah,
damn it.
No, that's happened to me.
I'll go to thrift books and buy it again.
That's happened to me. Like, I've actually sent you a bunch of books, and I'm like, damn, I kind of want those back. No, and I'm just busting chops. But my whole point in bringing this up is, but yeah, like getting back to the conversation we had started, and I didn't mean to derail it. I just kind of wanted to. Well, I did not put it very eloquently, and I wanted to put it out there eloquently. So, but that's the thing. Like, I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, I could probably name 3 Death songs, but I'm like, I could totally name all of their albums, and I could do it easily. Like, I mean, again, yes, barring the like camera in your face, microphone in your face,
brain fart.
The nervousness. But I'm like, I could name all their albums. Deceased is arguably one of my favorite death metal bands, and yeah, I could easily probably name 5, 10 songs, whatever. But I'm like, if you were to ask me name every song on this album, no. But could I name all their albums? Yes. Now I get it. That's less information.
I'm a huge Obituary fan, and I could name all their records, but dude, actually, to be honest with you, I would probably stumble on that one too. Cause of Death, I could name every song on Cause of Death.
Oh yeah,
I used to listen to it 1 billion times. But dude, don't ask me to name 3 songs on World Demise. I know the record inside and out. From like a listening to it perspective, I've listened to it 1 million times.
And that's the other thing too.
Don't ask me what the track's on. I don't remember.
And that's the other thing too.
Hell, it's Obituary. They really, the first 2 records didn't have lyrics anyway.
Well, but that's the other thing too. Is there's another person who commented on this saying like, I probably couldn't name 3 songs, but I could probably hum you every single riff on the album.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I'm a guitar player, and like that's what I listen to. And that's the other thing too. A lot of times, like, when I listen to metal, I listen to the riffs. There are some bands like 9 Inch Nails lyrically is a super important band to me. Like, I could probably recite. I used to read the lyrics to the Downward Spiral like you would read a book of poetry. Like, I used to read those over and over and over again. But generally speaking, like Slayer, like, I love Slayer. I have been listening to Slayer since the early 90s, when I was old enough to understand who Slayer was and go out and get their records. I was old, like, I've been listening to Slayer since then. I probably couldn't quote you, I could maybe quote you tidbits of lyrics to, like, maybe, Angel of Death I could sing, but like,
you asked me, songs you gotta like sing along with.
What are all of the lyrics to Spill the Blood? Oh, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where, like, because what the lyrics, especially for a band like Slayer, where it's all like, Satan, I love Satan, God, it's just they're not important to me. Now,
No, I mean, I'm that well. I mean, it's funny how I am someone who pays a lot of attention to vocals, but actually not lyrics. It's odd if you think about it, how little I pay attention to lyrics. Like, I know you've talked a lot about how, like, Nine Inch Nails lyrics mean a lot to you, and we've talked about that before. We don't need to go back to it. I pay very little attention to lyrics most of the time. Even if I know the lyrics to the song, I don't really pay much attention to them most of the time. The only lyricist who, in general, I always make it a point to read the lyrics and think about them is Neil Peart. But if you read any of his lyrics, especially the 70s, they were just kind of like a lot of fantasy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, dude, if you read any of their lyrics from the 80s or 90s, Neil Peart was legitimately a poet. And you're reading his lyrics going, okay, these are really good. But I don't do that with 99% of the bands I listen to.
Well, and that's what
Even
I'm
if I
saying
learn
about,
the lyrics, I don't pay that much attention to them. Like, I don't care most of the time.
and that's what I'm saying. Like, is
chopped in half. I mean, that means a lot to me.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, and I get some people do connect. Like, Anthrax has lyrics that probably some people connect with. Like, see, like I'm having a brain fart again. Like, Indians, for instance. Like,
Right.
they had a lot of songs that had messages that weren't just, Satan, I love Satan, God, Metallica had a lot of lyrics that were like not provocative, but they were provocative in some ways.
Thought-provoking anyway.
Like some things like Ride the Lightning was a statement on the death penalty. Disposable Heroes was about war and people going and dying in war. And, one was the Dalton Trumbo, based on the Dalton Trumbo novel Johnny Got His Gun. It was also like about anti-war and stuff. So yes, there are lyric sets out there that you can say like, oh yeah, well there's a lot of thought in there. So by no means am I saying the lyrics don't matter. I'm saying a lot of times, and there's a lot of bands where, yes, maybe the lyrics to you are super, profound is the word I was looking for with not provocative, but profound. Maybe you can say Chuck Schuldner's lyrics are profound. I don't understand why you wouldn't memorize them and read them and appreciate them. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not saying they aren't worth reading. I'm not saying they aren't worth memorizing. I'm saying when you listen to music, people listen for different things.
I totally agree.
I could pick up the guitar and I could play a few Death songs. Like I could I could play that. To me, that's what I listen to. I don't listen to Chuck. I don't like it, and it's cool. I like that it's there. But to me, a lot of times with death metal, especially, the vocalist is another instrument.
Yeah.
So like,
I totally agree.
When I'm listening to the guitars, I don't think, oh, that's a D, that's an F, that's a C, that's a G, that's a G. I don't think like that any more than I think of lyrics as words as much as lyrics as notes. You know what I mean?
Like, dude, I'm a drummer, and there are songs that I'm telling you right now, I couldn't have told you what time signature they were in because I don't think about it that way. I think about drums as a groove. I think about drums about how they feel or what they're doing, the notes they're accenting or whatever. I mean, I've said this before. Like, I never found out that Tom Sawyer by Rush was in 7. Part of it's in 4. It goes back and forth, but I didn't know it was in 7 until after I could already play it. Like, I knew the song, and I was talking to someone. They're like, "Oh, I have trouble playing in 7." I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" They're like, "The song's in 7." I went, "I have no idea." Like, what do you mean? Because I don't know. Like, you don't count it? No. I don't. No, I don't sit there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. I just play the damn song because I know what it sounds like. And I'm like that with so much stuff. But I mean, come on. Look at Cannibal Corpse, for example. There's a reason why I'm not offended by it. There's 2 reasons why nothing off the Bleeding offends me. There's 2 reasons. One is because, I'm just not offended very easily. The other one is because I don't pay attention to anything that came out of Chris Barnes' mouth. I don't care. I don't pay any attention to it. Okay, the Bleeding, I realize you can actually understand a lot of it. But think about it that way. I am just.
It's
I'm not
another
gonna
instrument.
Go, oh, man. Yeah,
I'm saying Chris Barnes' voice and Corpse Grinder. You can actually really understand what Corpse Grinder says if you're used to death metal vocals. Now, I'm not saying that somebody who listens to nothing but the Allman Brothers or Beyonce or people who are used to listening to people sing could understand Corpse Grinder. But if you're used to death metal vocals, I think Corpse Grinder is one of the guys that really enunciates what he's saying.
Yeah. But Johan from Amon Amarth enunciates everything.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you can understand what they're saying. But to me, Corpse Grinder is an instrument the same as the guitars, where what he's saying isn't as important as how he's saying it, so to speak, as far as the structure of the song. You know what I mean? And yes, you can say Corpse Grinder gets well, all he does is this, and then he goes like that. Like whatever. But at the same time, it's no different than guitar going dun 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 dun. Dun. You'd think, oh, that's a cool riff. You know what I mean?
I have found something I have found funny for the last, I don't know, whatever, 25 plus years is when you listen to Napalm Death. Something I find hilarious about Napalm Death. When you listen to Barney talk about lyrics on their album.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this before, yeah.
He will spend a half an hour having the most intelligent conversation because he is a extremely intelligent guy. He's an extremely well-spoken guy. And he will go on and on and on. And then the song is 8 seconds long. And it's it. It's like, dude, you did not just... You didn't... It's so weird. Because, again, you look at a guy like Barney, which is even funnier because, they call his name's Mark Greenway, but just when you listen to him describing all of the meaning behind the song and about it's this criticism of the capitalist society in gerbils, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's this gigantic thing, and you go, well, I didn't get that out of that. It just sounded like to me. And again, I like Napalm Death. I'm not making fun of Napalm Death. But it just, again, it goes the other way. Like, seriously, like, just watch any interview with Barney from Napalm Death. If you have never seen one, you will be shocked at how, like, well-spoken that guy is. And especially with his accent, it makes it even funnier. And if you've seen them, well, it's a little different because you saw them as an opening band on a big stage, but they still did it. If you go see Napalm Death headline, Barney will talk for 10 minutes about an 8-second song. It's just funny. And again, I love Napalm Death. In fact, I actually really don't like them musically, but I like Barney so much because he's just so interesting, and his jogging in place like a pissed off old dad is just funny. But again, I don't know. It's one of those things where I guess you could take it both ways. I can't tell you one thing that Chris Barnes has ever written that I paid attention to. And look, dude, you're the same way. Like, think of the first 6 Feet Under record. You could probably sing along to everything on there. I would be shocked if you couldn't sing, quote unquote, with every song on the first 6 Feet Under record. Or at least, let's say, 75% of it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But I would think you could probably sing along with the vast majority of that record. And you probably still, you could probably literally, you're singing along with them and you know the words and have probably never spent 10 seconds actually thinking about them. I know Lycanthropy is the one about the wolf because he says this is the one about the wolf. And it's called Lycanthropy, so you can put two and two together. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, it's just funny. It's funny to me. And I'm telling you, 99% of the time, I don't care. Actually, have you ever the Iron? It's funny from an Iron Maiden perspective because early in Iron Maiden's career, when Bruce Dickinson was first hired, well, not just when he was first hired, but in the early days, let's see, Number of the Beast was like 82, I think. Whatever. Let's go with that. When Bruce Dickinson joined Iron Maiden, Bruce would be like, I'm the singer, I'm center stage. And Steve Harris is like, I'm the main guy in the band, I'm center stage. But they would also argue where Steve would say, it's the music that matters, and Bruce Dickinson would be like, it's not the music that matters, it's the lyrics. Like, literally, I mean, the two guys, they would argue all the time about what's more important. Is it really, do the lyrics matter? I mean, I realize that Steve wrote a lot of them too, but Steve's perspective was, it's the music behind this that matters way more than the lyrics do. But then you get someone like Bruce Dickinson, who, again, he's an intelligent guy, and he puts a lot of, he probably puts a lot of time into his lyrics, and he feels like that's a big deal. I don't know. It's just it's two different ways to look at the, two sides of the same coin, I guess. I don't really know where I'm going with this, other than listen to an interview with Barney Greenway. It'll make your day. They're hilarious.
I mean, you'll
sit there and go, wow, this guy, he lost to me 10 minutes ago because I don't even know what he's talking about at this point. But man, he's interesting.
But going back to the original, like, what
sorry,
we were talking about was
we're getting at that point where when we said this would be a short episode, I'm getting almost to that point where we're going to be canning it here pretty soon. But go ahead.
No, but I'm getting back to the point is, it's just kind of funny because, that made me think about that. And it was kind of interesting because I've always thought that I was a weirdo. Like, I've always thought, oh, geez, I love this band, but man, I don't really read track listing because, I think there's also some bands where, yes, there are some bands where I can say, oh, I can pick out a couple tracks because I really like the, this song. And if I'm making a playlist for a road trip or something, or for a particular purpose or something, that I'll pull tracks out. But, I think generally since, for the longest time now, I listen to records, and there are some records I don't think that you can really just, somebody replied to me, they're like, well, I always remember what my favorite songs are, so I know to go back to them. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the thing. Like, when I'm listening to a record, I'm like, oh yeah, I like this song. I don't sit there and think, oh, I have to memorize what this song is so I can go find it. It's more one of those things I can't wait till that song comes on. You know what I mean? It's not because again, I used to do that. I used to dice up records. Like, I would get a new album, I'd listen to it, I'd pull my favorite 4 or 5 songs or whatever, however many songs, and I'd put them on a playlist that was like my master playlist that, when I or a couple different playlists, like I'd have like a metal one and then and just like a master, like everything I like, all my favorite stuff playlist that was like 4,000 songs long, and it ranged in genres from movie themes to like, whatever. Either way, point being, I used to do that. And one of the reasons when I got my record collection back from my childhood home, for lack of a better term, and I started listening, I was like, this actually makes me really, and this is one of the reasons why I fully bought in to records, was it forced me to listen to the whole album. Because the problem I've always found with streaming, and this, I don't want to turn this into a streaming versus physical media debate. I'm talking about for me personally, and I know a lot of people feel the same way, have told me this, whereas when you have access to so much so easily, it becomes very easy to, like, halfway through a song be like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this song, so I'm gonna go listen to that song now. And then you listen to that song, and when that song ends, you're like, oh, you know what, I'm kind of in the mood to listen to this now. And you kind of start skipping around so much that you don't listen to full pieces of work anymore. And that's another cool thing about metal. I feel like music in general has migrated so heavily towards the single or the handful of singles, where albums are almost an excuse. Albums have always been an excuse to release singles, but in my opinion, the singles were always to get you to buy the album. Now that you don't have to buy the album anymore, I feel like singles are are what a lot of artists are doing now. Like, yes, they release albums, but I don't even know why. Because, you know, it used to be you'd play a single on the air and somebody'd hear it and say, well, I have to go buy the record because I want to get this song. So you get the record and, you know, sometimes the record, oh, this is a great record. And other times you're like, wow, this thing sucks except for that song. Now I don't understand it because now you can just go on Apple Music or Spotify and listen to that one song you like and never even listen to the rest of the record. I feel like that's a lot different with metal, where I feel like people are still very album oriented in heavy metal. And I feel like, you know, so I always, you know, ever since, you know, I'm happy that I kind of switched to this media, because it forces you to sit there and you know, yes, I understand that, yes, you can pick up the needle and drop it and switch records and everything else, but the fact that there's work and effort outside of click, 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 it kind of makes you sit there and listen to the record. And I feel like I've become to appreciate that a little more. So as a result of that, or consequence, maybe it's a consequence, I don't know, result, consequence, whatever, I feel like I've kind of lost the idea of tracks, and I more look at albums as complete works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, and you and I have talked about this for a long time. To go back to the name 3 songs thing, I have always said that I was an album guy, not a single guy. That I always thought of albums as albums. There's a reason why there are bands I like more than other bands. And sometimes it's because that band put out an album I liked because I'm attracted to that. If a band puts out a full album I like, I am much more attracted to a band that does that as opposed to a band who has a greatest hits. Case in point, Kiss does not put out records that are good all the way through. Their records are singles with crap thrown in the middle. Look, I'm a huge Kiss fan, and some albums are better than others. Kiss is not a great album start to finish band. They're just not. I'm sorry to every Kiss fan out there. All of their records also have some crap on them. I like Kiss. I like Kiss a lot. But
you don't want to meet you in the ladies' room?
Yeah, well, you know. But, you know, again, well, okay, why is Operation Mindcrime in my top 5 albums ever put out? Because if you look at Operation Mindcrime as a single, yeah, I mean, I get it. There's two. I don't believe in love. Okay, fine. That was a single and it works. But the fact that it's great on a whole attracted me a lot more than a band who puts out, you know, great singles and fills the records in. That being said, that adds to the fact that sometimes, dude, I could sing along with every word of Operation Mindcrime. I know that album inside and freaking out. And I'm telling you right now, if you asked me to name every song on it, I could probably do it. But I would have to literally sit down and try to go through the... I would have to try to piece the story together in my head and be like, all right, what is the name of that? You know, I don't even... I'm telling you right now, I would still probably screw it up and forget something. Because I think of Operation Mindcrime as a record. So that, I mean, and dude, I would get a Queensryche tattoo in a second. I'd love Queensryche. And yeah, I could name 5 Queensryche songs, but like, think of just, I don't know. I guess I'm with you in saying there are so many bands that I listen to from an album perspective that bringing it, I mean, Rage for Order, for example. I can't remember the name of half of those songs on there, but I can sing along with them. And I could, you know, air drum it or think of the guitars or it's just, you know, And those are, again, one of my all-time favorite bands, some of my all-time favorite records. And I'm with you, man. There's just stuff I don't remember because I don't pay attention to it. There are songs on Rage for Order by Queensryche that have great lyrics, but I'll tell you, I never paid attention to them. Even the ones I can sing along to. Never paid attention to them, I guess. Maybe I'm just wrong, and I guess I'm not cool. Maybe I'm not a cool metalhead. Maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe I need to take the patch off my jacket. Maybe I need to throw away my Queensryche records. Maybe I need to just listen to something else. But yeah, you're right. Damn it, I don't remember the name, and maybe that's a bad example because, again, with Operation Mindcrime, I could probably name the majority of them. But who cares? I don't know. I guess I'm saying who cares. I guess I'm saying it depends why you listen to something, and it depends what you get out of it.
And there's no right or wrong answer, by the way.
Of course, there's no right or wrong answer.
So, like, if you are the kind of person that sits there and sits down and memorizes a track list, cool. If you're the kind of person that listens to an album and pulls your 5 favorite songs and throws them on a playlist, cool. Like, I'm not sitting here saying anything is better or worse.
It doesn't matter.
As a matter of fact, like, this whole conversation is kind of me saying, like, I think there's multiple ways to consider somebody a fan of something, and that's why the whole name 3 songs I feel like is flawed, because I think a lot of people, you could say name 3 songs, they'd stutter and stammer and stumble, but if you handed them a guitar, they could play you 3 songs. I think it's one of those things too, where, again, people like we've been talking about, people listen for different reasons. Like, bass players are going to listen to the bass lines, and maybe they're not going to care about, I got to remember this song is this and this song is that. And
interestingly, people, not everybody can do that, or maybe not everybody. It's not that I would say everybody probably can, but when you talk to people who aren't musicians, sometimes the idea of just pay attention to the bass in this song is a concept they've never really thought about before.
Yeah,
and that is not me saying bad things about them, but to go, to add to it, there are songs where your brain, you isolate the guitars on it. There are songs that I am completely ignoring what's going on because I am so focused on the drums, or I'm so focused on the vocals that I couldn't tell you what that bass might not even be on there, or whatever. And by the way, I also want to add, name 3 songs. Why? I only like 2 of them. So what? What, you can't like a band if you only like 2 of their songs? I'm telling you right now, there are probably bands out there that you only like 1 or 2 of their songs.
No, of course.
So what? Who cares? Who cares? Lots of bands. There are bands that were one-hit wonders that actually were great bands. I mean, let's be fair. Look at the 90s, for example. There were loads of bands in the 90s that were absolutely incredible bands. They just only happened to have one song that got airplay. But there's also plenty of bands that... I was talking to someone not long ago about Soul Asylum, for example. And they're like, I really like that band. I was like, yeah. And they're like... And I didn't do the whole name 3 songs thing. It was because they're like, I've actually never... They actually said to me, I've never listened to one of their albums. Never heard it. But Runaway Train is an amazing song. Is there something wrong with that? Is there something wrong with the fact that they actually don't even care to listen to the rest of the albums? They just know that Runaway Train is an amazing song and they really like it. And they would go see that band in concert because they love that song. What's wrong with that? You're going to call them a poser because they went and saw Soul Asylum when they really only knew one song and that's the only one they ever liked? No, I'm sorry. You're a dick if that's what you do. I don't know why I thought of Soul Asylum, but it's because I actually had that conversation with someone not long ago. Hey, and The Horse They Rode In On is a great record, and don't ask me when any of the songs are on it or call it, because I haven't looked at that thing in a long time. Love the record. I would listen to it, but it's been so long since I've looked at the track listings on it. But I mean, and again though, it's actually okay to say you like a band when you only like 2 songs. That doesn't make you a poser.
I mean, like, I think people
forget the fact that you don't even know them. You just might literally only like 2.
I think people get too hung up on that. You know, like,
I do too.
I get it's a cool fun, and I get it. It's a cool fun thing to do, and you know, I don't mind it when people do it as kind of like a ball busting thing. You know, I just hate
the one dude that was like you're wearing a Slayer t-shirt. He's like, yeah, because I slay. Like that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean that guy.
And I'm not making fun of the guy. That was kind of funny. He's like, I didn't know it was a band. I slay.
I mean, I get, you know, and again,
I got laid a lot.
I have better things to do than worry about the guy at the bar who's wearing a Slayer shirt who might not know the song "Spill the Blood" or who might not know the song "Skeletons of Society." You know what I mean? Like, I have. Well, I mean,
better how many times have we said too? Like, well, Slayer got paid for you buying that shirt.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, that's it's. Hey, I'd walk up to, hey, dude, Slayer, that's awesome, and he'd be like, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, well, this conversation's over, and I'd walk away. I'm not going to be like, take it off.
I've had that conversation before.
Yeah,
I mean, and I have literally had that conversation where I saw someone in an Iron Maiden shirt, and I was like, this was years ago, but I'm like, oh my God. I was like, dude, I love that shirt. I'm like, I'm going to see them next week, and they're like, going to see who? So what are you talking about? I'm going to see Iron Maiden. They're like, what do you mean? I'm going to see Iron Maiden concert next week. Your t-shirt, I just thought it was a cool shirt. Like, I wasn't being a douche. I was trying to do the whole, oh, you're cool. You're wearing an Iron Maiden shirt. We can talk about it. And they're like, I don't know, cool design. Is there a problem? I don't know. I mean, again, I know we've talked about that before, but it was more just I wasn't calling them out. I was more being like, oh, cool, you like Iron Maiden, I'm going to see them. And they just gave me that, what are you talking about? I just thought it was a t-shirt. Well, it is. I don't know. Sorry, I had to sneeze.
No, I mean, but
sometimes you got to sneeze, man. It happens.
I get it. I mean, it was. And again, I wasn't doing this to complain.
No, I know
I just saw the video, and it more got me thinking about less like, why would somebody do this, and it got me more thinking about like because I remember like we'd always have like a small pile of CDs with us, and in between classes we'd just read the liner notes and do that. And again, it's not that I don't read liner notes and stuff. I just thought to myself, I'm like, I really don't memorize like track lists the way that I used to. It is funny because somebody replied to me, "You suck," and I'm like, okay, like I don't really care about you either, like.
But again, though, like when you buy an album and you listen to it, and when you again, I said 10, but when you only own 10 CDs. You listen to those 10 CDs a lot. And when you want to listen to music, you go back to your 10 CD collection. This, people nowadays, it is impossible for someone nowadays to understand what it's like to say that the only music you can listen to is on FM radio or your own music collection. I realize your friend had it, blah, blah, blah. But there were times in our lives when we had MTV and you turn it on and go, damn it, it's the real world again. You had FM radio, which are going, great, this song sucks, and they're playing it again. So you're limited to the CDs that you have, the however many that is. Like I'm thinking back to having like Far Beyond Driven. I remember when I got Far Beyond Driven, and I listened to that album like 100 times because it was the heaviest album I owned. And when I didn't have 100 million other things. I mean, I'm going to joke it. Let me go on brand and give you a joking example, but it kind of illustrates the point. let's be fair. People nowadays are not gonna try to pause it at the opening scene of Lethal Weapon because a girl with big jugs, is laying there on top of a car because you got Pornhub. It's different when you only had. It's different when the best spank bank you had was a copy of Lethal Weapon. Dude, but I'm serious. You know what I mean? No, again, I'm using a Duff branded example, but that's what you had, or Lethal Weapon, or Under Siege. Look, man, Miss July 1989. She had a set of knockers that are totally worth talking about. And I can visualize them from every angle, and I could probably write you an entire book on the boobs in that movie that are there for 10 seconds. But because there was a time in my life where the best thing that I could have a wank to was one scene in Under Siege. As opposed to now, you're like, dude, you have endless amounts of it on the internet. People our age can remember every last detail of the 3 Playboy magazines we have. I mean, no, literally. Think about it. Like, we could all think back to oh man, I remember the cover. I remember I remember everything about those Playboy magazines that I had because you didn't have Pornhub in your pocket. It's the same thing today. Yeah, there's plenty of records that I remember inside and out. Part of it was I didn't also have every other album known to man one click away. Look at nowadays. I mean, Rex, I'm not going to ask you to give me examples, okay? Think of the albums that you love, right? Countdown to Extinction, Downward Spiral, great examples. Think of how many times you've listened to those albums. I mean, thousands of times you listen to those albums.
Yeah, I've listened to Downward Spiral 4 times this week. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, but let's go back in time. Let's go back in time to 1995, whatever. How many times did you listen to those albums in 1995? Compare that to how many times have you listened to any album in the last year? I'm willing to bet you listened in 1995 to 5 albums. You probably listened to those 500 times each. And I'm willing to bet you there was not an album this year that you listened to that many times. Why? Because you don't listen to the same album 8 million times when you have everything else at your disposal. I'm not saying you haven't listened to it a lot. There are records that I still to this day listen to a lot, but nothing compared to when I didn't have the selection or when I had the time. When I was in 8th grade, I was sitting in my bedroom with my tiny little stereo and nothing else better to do. I could sit there and pay attention to every last instance of music. Dude, how much music do we listen to now? Well, I mean, Rex, again, I don't expect you to actually answer this question. Think of how much music you listen to in a week, right? Just think of how much music you listen to in a week. How much of that was you listening to it and that was the only thing you were doing at that time?
Oh yeah,
right? I'm guessing a small percentage of the music you listen to it while that's the only thing you're doing at the time.
Currently or back then?
No, currently.
Oh, currently, yeah. The thing is, I don't have that luxury. That's what I mean. When you were 13, you had nothing else better to do. You just watched Under Siege. You had a wank. Now you've got nothing else better to do. Well,
you're sitting in a room with your Pantera album, where now you're like, yeah, I listened to the new album, but I was working.
Well, but that's you're right though, because I think of when I used to listen to a lot of music was on hockey road trips, and this is before iPhones and iPads where you could just watch a movie or watch YouTube or scroll on social media. Literally, after a hockey game when we're all tired and half asleep, we would all just put our headphones on and listen to music, and that's all I had to do. Maybe if we were on a bus, a nice bus, they would put a movie on, like those crappy little 7-inch televisions in the ceiling or whatever. But where unless you were sitting in the row right under it, you couldn't even see what was happening. Well,
so can we also add to that the only music you could listen to, even the first example, the only music you could listen to on that trip were the CDs you decided to take with you.
Right. I'd have a little 12, 24. I don't remember how many book.
You were cool in those days if you had the little 12 CD case with the Pepsi logo on it. The little blue logo. Pepsi CD case that everybody had. I want to say it held 12. It doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. My point is, when you traveled, you brought 12 CDs. You couldn't bring, if you had a gigantic music library, you couldn't bring it with you. You couldn't bring it with you. You
wouldn't want to because it would get stolen.
Well, no, but that too. But I mean,
even if you had one of those 300 CD cases, you wouldn't bring it on a road trip with you. I mean,
right.
Some people left those in their cars, but I mean, if you were sitting on a bus, you wouldn't do that.
And I knew a guy who had one of those, and it was just Dave Matthews. But today you could bring your phone, and you're like, well, I might not have a good internet connection. Great, but as soon as your internet comes back on, you can download whatever the hell you want to. Back in those days, you're like, I'm going on a road trip, and I can only take 12 CDs with me. 13 if you consider one might be in the player and the other 12 are. But you're going, what do you bring with you? Your 12 favorite albums, or what right? You probably you would have probably brought Countdown to Extinction and Then Upward Spiral or whatever the example is. Because you're thinking to yourself, dude, if I'm going to be traveling and I can only bring 12 CDs with me, you're bringing your Desert Island ones with you. Maybe a couple of them were new albums you've never heard, but you're going to get a new album. Dude, the 12 records you're going to bring with you, one of them might not be the new album you just bought because you're going to be like, damn it, this album sucks. So glad I took up a spot for this pile of crap.
But to your point, like we were talking about before, was you have a limited library, but I mean more so. You're right in terms of
time.
You're right in terms of during road trips or now. I think about even I commuted a lot when I was going into the city before when I was working in my office in Manhattan, and there would be I was on the bus. There'd be I was on the bus an hour, 2 hours sometimes if there was traffic, and I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, all of that time I'm listening to music. But I'm also thinking about it but I was also doing something else. I was, reading a book, or I was watching, maybe watching YouTube or scrolling on social media. Whereas, again, yes, you could always read a book. I understand you can read a book. But a lot of times, if you're traveling at night and you aren't on a bus with lights or anything, you didn't have that option. So again, you're right. I think the whole captive audience thing, there's something to that. We have so much bombarding us. We have responsibilities now. We have everybody's got computers, phones, everything else that even if you had a personal computer with the internet back when we were listening to a lot of the music, it was dial up. You were lucky if you had DSL, where it's it's dial-up. That means I'm going to start loading this website now, go get a sandwich, come back, and then maybe I can look at the first page, that kind of stuff.
Can we be honest? Nothing was better than a woman with DSLs, but that's besides the point.
Yeah,
let me say this real quick, and then it is, we really do have to kind of get ready to get out of here. Just as a practical example, I will be traveling next week. I've got to travel for work. I'm assuming we're going to record the show next week, but I'll be traveling for work. And when you look at it, I was telling you earlier, I'm reading a book right now, and I really want to finish it because I know next week that I'm going to have a lot of downtime, between being on an airplane and being in airports and sitting in a hotel. I'm going to have a lot of downtime. And when I have a lot of downtime, I like to read. Thing is, I don't like reading on my phone. I don't like reading on a tablet. So, even though that's a possibility, what I can read this week is limited to what books I literally like I'm going. I also have to pack all the stuff I need for work, clothing and all that jazz. I'm like, I can only take what I can physically fit in my bag. I can only fit what I can put in my bag. It is and I mean I'm talking books, which is again, I may realize it's not the same thing as talking about music, but it's a lot different than you just going, well, I just brought my tablet and I can listen to whatever I want. I can watch whatever I want. I can listen to whatever. It was the same with movies. Dude, come on. Look at how many times we watched Wayne's World and Airheads and Dazed and Confused. And don't get me wrong, we both love those movies. But do you really think we would have watched those movies as many times as we did if we had like modern streaming and basically the ability to watch anything we ever wanted to? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I doubt it. I doubt you and I would have been like, let's just watch Wayne's World, Dazed and Confused, and Airheads again if we were like, oh, dude, look what's on. Let's see what's on Prime, and we just go through and find dozens of things. It all kind of works. Again, it's just like it's all of it. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with that. I just know it's about time we get out of here. I want to let you wrap up your thoughts or anything else you want to add. I'm just saying I'm at the point where I'm about to have to tap out, but.
Yeah, no, and that's really fine. Like I think we've kind of beaten this to death, but
death.
I think that
beat it to death.
There's a lot of things I think on this list where I'm sorry, I was looking at the list of cues of our like topic queue. We've built one of those. But yeah, I really think that it's just kind of interesting to think about how you listen to music, and there's no right answer, and I was thinking about that again, and it's really fun to go back sometimes and listen to albums you haven't listened to in a long time and kind of revisit them and refresh them and think about like how, it's even really fun. There are a few albums where, back when I was in my playlist building days where I used to pull the tracks off, going back and listening to those whole albums and listening to them again and really kind of appreciating what I missed. Because I think sometimes, again, when you focus on tracks too much, you miss stuff. Like, you'll hear that. Like, I remember telling you the one time, it was a long, and this is going back to the 90s. I was listening to Cowboys from Hell. I'd listened to that album 1,000 times, whatever. And for some reason, I was listening to The Art of Shredding, and it just hit me the right way. And I was just like, why have I never paid more attention to this song? And it could have been because it was the last song on the album, and sometimes, by that point, you're, like you said, you're kind of like, I don't want to say you're tapping out or tuned out, but by the last song in the album, you're just kind of like, you've been listening to it for a while, and sometimes you don't notice it. So, it's always worthwhile going back and listening to those and kind of revisiting them. So if you're a track person, do yourself a favor, find some of those tracks you absolutely love, go back and listen to the album and really pay attention to it as a work. So I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. It was just something that kind of hit me, and I was curious. And for you out there, let us know what you think. Are you somebody that when they get a new album, they sit down and like really kind of pour over the track list, or are you somebody that you put a new album in your iTunes and you just listen to it and enjoy it and say, oh yeah, this is cool, and then listen to it again, because I've probably there's a few of my top 10 last year that I listened to literally probably dozens, if not dozens of times. And honestly, if you were asking me to name one track on the album, I'm like, I could probably name you one or two. But those are the ones that maybe when I'm driving in my car, I glance at like the display to see what song is on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same way.
I did want to say one more thing, and it has nothing to do with what we were talking about. For those of you who requested patches, I have a pile of envelopes on my desk. I have not got to the post office, which is one of the reasons why it's taken me so long to, offer up these patches, because again, I knew this would be exactly what happened. I haven't gotten to the post office to get the shipping material, like the stamps. I don't have a single stamp in this house. So again, I if you've requested patches from me, I've got them. They're sealed up. They're processed. I just need to actually go and send them, and I promise I will. And I don't get paid to do this, so so you're gonna get them when you get them. But I promise they're on their way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, go for it. In fact, I have some, and I actually forget I have them too. So, lots of fun. I like it. Anyway, hey, I know I said this was going to be a short episode. It actually went a little bit longer than I thought it would. We're going to lose an hour of sleep tomorrow, and it's been a week. Let's put it that way. So, I'm glad we recorded tonight. We were highly considering not recording. I'm totally glad we did. I apologize if I had absolutely nothing to add and made the episode just unlistenable. I don't know. A lot of it was I haven't slept, and I did some drinking tonight. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun. Go ahead, get a hold of us again. We should be recording next week. I'm going to be gone, and I should be back in time that we can record next week. But if any chance there's not an episode next week, just know that in advance. There's a small possibility it might not happen. Anyway, other than that, don't forget to hit us up on Facebook and Instagram at the Heavy Metal Hangover. We will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. In the meantime, I want to thank you very much for listening. My name is Duff.
My name is Rex.
And we'll see you again next week on another episode of the Heavy Metal Hangover. Congratulations for actually making it all the way through this episode of the Heavy Metal Hangover
with your beer-guzzling, head-banging hosts, Rex and Duff.